Yo, whoa! Welcome everyone to a Mere Mortals Meandering session. It's your boy, Kyron here.
Got one on the other end.
One. Beanie and sunglassed up here out in the park, even though it's a nice, actually, kind of warmish day.
It's a warmish day. It's nice and sunny.
Yeah,
it was raining
cool.
hard this morning. It was cloudy. And it's just peeled away. The sky has parted.
Mm-hmm.
It's the divinity himself has said, Mere Mortals, you're going to have a good day today. Not like last time when we were doing some podcasting where it was raining the shit onto us.
Yes, agreed.
Today it was a better day.
There's as I was editing, there was this great minute where the typhoon, whatever the hell it was, came in, and it was just noise picked up, leaves picked up, everything was going like, holy shit, what's going on here? Anyway, Meanderings is a session where we come down to the park like we just discussed, and we chill out a little bit. We come up with some topics, random ones that neither of us have talked about before, and see where we go. So I'm just going to kick it off with my first one, which was taken from the book that I had the last week, The Social Leap, by William von Hippel.
Yep.
A guy who's actually here in Brisbane. I'm going to reach out to him and see if I can get him on the podcast.
He went to UQ?
He works at UQ now. He was born in Alaska, though, I believe. Yeah.
William von Hippel.
Yeah, it's a cool name as well. Anywho, in this book, there was this one particular part he was talking about, which I thought was pretty cool, and it's the difference between social innovation and technological innovation. Now, if you had to guess what that meant, what do you think that would be, the difference between the two?
Ooh. I would say social innovation would be something akin to evolution or groupthink or what is it called? The intersubjectivity change.
Look at this guy bringing out words from
Yuval Noah Harari.
That's it.
Yeah. So something like that. And then technologically would be specific to like software, hardware, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So... Well, I don't even understand what the first words you said, so I'm not sure about that. But you got the second part right.
Nice.
And there was an example he used in the book, which was he was traveling through some country, went to border control, and it was a developing country, so they didn't have all the rules, regulations in place like we do. Well, I was going to say here in Australia, but we're an island, so it's not like our border control is very different than compared to landlocked countries or countries bordering physically. And he was saying there was one customs control and you had to just go to it, and so there was a bottleneck of just everyone going into this one guy, and he would be basically like, get the passport, stamp it, just going crazy with it. And he Bill was saying in this little example he was giving, it was just mayhem. There was this one point where he somehow managed to get through into the port, like the portion where you need to get fed through, and then he was getting carried on before the guy gave him his passport back. So he was sort of like reaching out, somehow managed to get it and get swept along.
Where exactly was this?
I don't think he actually ever said in the book. He just said it was a developing country. Yeah. Okay. And he was saying, well, what it would be a social innovation in this portion, and what humans have socially innovated before is the line, standing in line. So the idea that if we take turns and there's a sort of justness to it, and there's a justness and fairness to everyone bulk going in, and whoever's the strongest gets in. You could argue that, but time saving wise, the social innovation is if we respect each other, form an orderly line, everything will go quicker, and so it is innovative. And it does make things better and smoother. And then you can contrast that to something like a booking system online. So you create some software, or maybe a ticketing system where people come and you get your ticket, and then a light will flash up, and then that's exactly what happened to me when I needed to get my license renewed really recently. Got a ticket. Then when my ticket went up, I knew which window to go to and which person at what time. So bam, like technologically, that's awesome.
Yep.
So he sort of contrasted these two, and it got me thinking about blockchain and crypto, and I guess the stuff that's going on in the social realm of all that. So we've talked a lot about the different blockchains that there are, the different cryptocurrencies, the difference between a fungible and non-fungible token and things like that. And these are all technological. I wanted to ask you, what are some examples you've seen of social change or social behavior, either good or bad, that's been innovative because of these technologies as well. So is there anything that you're noticing people doing, saying, behaving in this area that might be intriguing or something you wouldn't expect? I've got a couple examples if you want me to go first.
Where the technology is first and then the social change is happening?
Yeah, so you can almost have different social behavior because of the technology, or it can be in like a sort of novel case, something.
Ooh, give me some examples.
Okay.
Give me some examples.
So Andreas Antonopoulos was talking about this in a podcast episode of his. I think it's Speaking of Bitcoin, or it might have been called Talking of Bitcoin back then. They had a name change. And he was talking about how in a pirated game, for example, you could have and this isn't particularly blockchain related, but I'll get to some of those in a second. But just to give an example of the technology then influencing social behavior and new social norms or innovations come out from that. So he was saying there was this, everyone could pirate games for a while and you still can largely by using the torrenting networks and things like that. You just go online. I don't feel like paying $20 for the release of this game. I'll just download it illegally somewhere and, I can do the exact same things. Why would I do that? Why would I pay the money? And in this case, the developers of the game somehow had these sneaky tactics where once you logged on, maybe you needed to log on with a key phrase or something that could only be gotten with the actual product or package in a legal means. And what they would do is you could still use the game, the software, but your character would have an eye patch on and a pirate hat. So if you were ever playing the game, and
people would know you've pirated it.
Well, yeah. And so everything else exactly the same. And even from a user standpoint, playing the game, exactly the same, because I think your character, you could only sort of see it, but it didn't affect anything. Like it didn't obscure the game anymore and make your character slow or anything. But yes, that meant that so then you might be saying, oh well, technological innovation that doesn't really do anything, but they did something a little bit different. What would be the ramifications socially? And they had some pretty big ones. If you were a gamer or a streamer, you could show that, but then everyone would know, oh, you're not playing by the rules. You profess to love this game, but you're not even willing to shell out $20 for it or whatever it is. So through that means of like some technological innovation, you could have some really cool social behaviors going on, i.e. incentivizing people to do what is right and not steal the game essentially. So that's one there where it's created a new social behavior.
Has it though?
In a way, maybe it's not.
Maybe what
new.
I'm struggling to understand here is like that when I picture technical innovation and social innovation, I'm like, that doesn't sound like technical innovation or social innovation. Like it seems like maybe at the local scale, it definitely is an innovation of sorts. I guess maybe my mind when you asked me the question, I was like, technical innovation is like, okay, what's like everyone's participating in, but this could be like any little thing.
Well, I'll change it slightly then, being get rid of the innovation part out of it. So what are some behaviors that you're noticing in the crypto sphere that perhaps you haven't seen before elsewhere in the real world? If so, don't even think about the innovation part.
I mean, the only thing that I'm trying to think of a lot of things if they're new. I mean,
and
one
even
of the
just for yourself, doesn't have to be for large scale. Can be just for yourself.
I think the movement, the decentralization away from central holdings of banks and the like. That's definitely one thing, at least personally, that I've seen in terms of. In the past, you could through the banking system set up ways that you were a bit more secure, but you just left everything to the banks. And
so you'd say more responsibility for your own money would be the behavior.
Well,
that's
not just even
changing.
money, just all your assets in general in the digital space changing. Whereas they once probably didn't exist really much apart from files and assets. Now it's assets in other means that you care more about as well.
So how would you say people have changed in that way? I.e.
But I don't know if change is really the right word for it. Like, I wouldn't even say that's a change because we were already doing that in other assets, in other areas. Like, I'm really struggling to see where the technology thing has changed first and then really caused the social change. Because often to me, it's like, say, with Bitcoin, right? So this is like original blockchain. The social change was first before the technological change. Because someone wanted the social change first before the technological change got implemented. So I would actually argue that anything blockchain related started with the social change first, and then the technology came along with it.
Okay.
Not that it went the other way around. So that's why I'm trying to, I'm struggling. Well, give me an example, I guess, from a blockchain perspective that you're seeing that the technology came first, and then socially it's changing.
Okay,
people.
so here's just, prime example of myself. One thing is I'm almost in a way losing track of the value of something, or being really readily available or willing to spend it, sort of proliferate it without even thinking about it. So, for example, two things here. One, you could sort of see it in the hosky world where it's easy to, because it has no value. So you see people tipping stuff, and someone gave me some comments, and I was like, oh yeah, here you go. Here's a tip of 10 million hosky. Yep. Enjoy. But that has also traveled over to something with monetary value, i.e. Bitcoin, which is this morning I jumped on to Podcasting 2.0 and they delayed their chat so I could actually listen in live, which was super cool, by the way. We need to get more people involved, because when you get a full chat room of people going, it's fucking cool.
Yep.
And I was wanting to try and see if I could get, my boost appear on this chat bot that they had set up, and also hear it live, because then you can hear the little pew in the background. And so I was boosting like 4 or 5 times, and I wasn't even really caring about the amount. I was going up, and I probably ended up spending, I don't know, $5-10, something like that, without even thinking about it. It went so quick. And then afterwards I went, whoa, normally I think if I have like a pause if I'm going to spend $5 or $10.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so that one was similar with the NFTs and boostergrams. I told you, there was a point where I was like buying hosky NFTs, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Each one of these is, $7-8 or something. Yeah. And I was still doing it.
See, the problem is, and again,
that's a new change for me. That's not something that's normal.
Well, and see, this is where I struggle with your question. I agree with like the proposition of technological change and social change. But I think what you're describing is something has been presented to you, and so something has changed individually for you. But for me, like when I hear social change, I'm like, well, social change by its definition has to be like more than just you, I'm assuming.
No.
So from like, say that example of like that technology causing that social change, like that change in you, I would say, yes, that did for sure. That happened. It was like through the utilization of NFTs on a hosky and blockchain that enabled that. But other things could have done that too at the same time. So it wasn't just that technological change that would have brought on that social change. Let's just say it was not blockchain, but freaking, I don't know, even something Web 2 related or anything where you just like really, really enjoy following a particular band, person, thing, and then they came out with such a way for you to pay them.
Yeah, but they haven't. Like nothing has.
But but again, I was saying, if that change came around, let's say it is a technology change, and it then makes you a social change because you're like, oh, now you're paying. It's like there's multiple different technology changes that could happen to influence social change. Well, I think the wording for me of social, I think the reason I'm not finding my answer is because I think I'm differing with like what social change.
All right, we'll change it again for you then. Behavior. What are some behaviors you're noticing in the NFT or with people who are surrounding themselves by blockchains and cryptocurrencies? Are there any behaviors that you haven't seen before?
Okay, maybe one behavior I have noticed in more volumes than in the past is the movement away of thinking in currency and just thinking in something else that we are putting value on, and again, it's market-based value, and really forgetting about currencies altogether. Like that is, I guess, one behavior that I'm seeing specifically with cryptocurrency or NFTs, where you're not thinking anymore of the dollar figure, whether it's in any fiat form. You're not thinking like USD, you're not thinking AUD. you're moving away altogether from like really sheer investment thinking. I think that behavior, like broadly as well, I haven't really seen that before. And so what I mean by that is like in a lot of chats with the V-Friends, Oz guys, or Dapper Dinos, yes, there's people talking about floor price, and yes, there's people talking about, oh yeah, when is it going to go above X price? But there's a whole host of people, like a lot of people that are just talking about like, oh, this is cool. Oh, this thing's like 2.80, that like, you know, worth it in the sense of like, is it cool enough? Is it like fun enough to do? Oh, I want to burn these things for that. And while there is some conversations of currency and price, there's a whole lot of other thinking that's like, oh, it's genuinely, you could compare like say, Ethereum to just dollars, and it's just, you could just say it's this amount of dollars and do the conversion. But it's like there's just enough of a removal that people are thinking about it more as like moving away from the fiat, and in good ways, and then in bad ways, because you're like not connected anymore to money in general. So like even in myself, I've found myself in normal day-to-day life to be with certain things, that's $20 or that's $200. Okay, I'll think about it. In NFT world, it's like I sold probably over 10 grand worth of stuff the other day, and bought over 20 grand for stuff in like an hour.
Yeah, it's 2 ETH. 2 is lower than 200.
Exactly, yeah. Like I sold some book games. So I sold 3 book games, bought 3 book games, sold 5 book games. And it felt like nothing. I was like, oh, there's just quick transactions. Dude, it was a lot of money. I was like, okay, that's strange. This is strange. I guess that's probably one example that I'm seeing.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So you said before as well, if it's just an individual, does that count as well? It's not just me. I've met many Hosky people saying almost the same wording as I've said, which is, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm doing it, but I need 10 of these things. I need 50, and you can see it with people's wallets.
I get this. Again, I think the problem I'm having is like, yes, I see the need for it. I get it. That social behavior though, or the changes, that there's people already out there with that didn't come from blockchain. So to say, is it like?
But once again, this is a change. Like, this isn't behavior I've shown. Name a time when I've splurged on something and then said, man, I don't know why I was doing that.
Yeah, no, it was definitely this thing that did it for you.
Yeah.
It cannot be said that this thing will do that for everybody. And so I can't say to you that is a social, like that social change, as in like you introduce blockchain and every social being is going to be changed because of it in this way.
Yeah, I wasn't claiming that.
No, and I think that's where I was coming from, being like, oh, I can't see that there's any technology change that does that so formally, and maybe there is. But I think that maybe that's what I was thinking about. You talking behavior-wise? Yeah, I can totally see that there's lots of other behaviors as well that blockchain's bringing in, like the decentralization movement. Like 5 years ago, would have been really happy with just being with one bank and having all my loans through one bank and everything like that. I guess a change with neobanks plus with blockchain behavior is that I'm more... I wouldn't say I'm concerned, but I care more about where my funds are sitting, that I protected. I don't necessarily think that a central governing body like a bank is terrible with it because it's got good security, but I do feel a sense of security that I also hold my own things and I'm the one who's protecting it and I'm the owner of that. Where 5 years ago, that behavior, I wouldn't have cared for that at all.
Yeah, gotcha. I'm just hammering home this point as well with regards to the boostergramming. Chad Farrow, I was having a little interaction with him on Twitter, and he was saying as well, he has only sort of just become a knight of the round table, and I think it's the round table in the no agenda world. It's just a knight. Do they say round table? I'm not sure. He's a knight now.
Yep.
And he did that over a 6-year period, donating I think
$50 a month.
No, I don't think it was
$50 a year. And
then extra
some bigger booster games every now and again.
And then the difference is he's like, I've sort of 10x that through boostergrams. And once again, you could be saying, oh, maybe he got a super high paying job and so now his perception of money is different and can etc. But I would say noticing a similar thing with me, which was the ability to directly interact with your favorite podcaster in this case and get the message through to them through the in a medium, in a way where it's connected with the medium, is just super huge. And yeah, I'm so glad. Like that cryptocurrencies and blockchains are coming along to allow us to do these sort of things. So
I think maybe in my words, like you don't need blockchain to do that. Like you could have done this. You could have set this all up without blockchain.
I'm saying like this is what has actually changed it to me. That's that hypothetical is sort of the same as I could have been spending more money because I found a gold vault or blah blah blah. It's like it's a hypothetical and you can't prove it. So
what I think I'm gonna like I'm imagining. Because often when we talk about some things here, and again, in Mortal Lights at Home, there's definitely like when we talk about a lot of these things, it's like, there's our perception and our view and the view that we know of. I was actually reading a little article today in some, one of those magazines that you can buy from the people who are selling it on the street. Like, how you have like the...
You mean like the homeless people?
Yeah, those guys.
I know of it, yeah.
Yeah, so I just like read some of those. So for people at home who don't know, basically there's a program where the homeless... you don't have to actually be homeless, but it's generally homeless people can purchase these magazines for $4.50 from the non-for-profit and then resell it at $9 to you, and then they keep that profit essentially. So they keep the $4.50 as profit for themselves, and that's how they can make some money. And there's obviously a lot of pieces there from homeless people and other individuals. And actually, what I guess, as you were saying some of these things, it struck me that if any of those people were to hear us say something like, oh yeah, and it was because of this that I saw that, the fact of giving is such a big thing. It makes me think, one, I think they would be so far removed potentially from blockchain, they'd be like, man, I don't understand how that would actually equate to that. But I say from their perspective, like, oh, okay, so if you're doing that and they're commenting and it's a good, how does it translate to giving and gifting? I feel like maybe I missed the mark when you threw me off right at the beginning, so perhaps I couldn't engage in that conversation as deeply. What's a behaviour that you think, though...
That's what it's called.
The big issue. What do you think is actually a bad behaviour, though, from blockchain that you're seeing?
I had something up here related to that. I was going to say the aping, I guess. That I hadn't heard of... Even the stock market, like Wall Street bets and stuff like that, I hadn't heard of that sort of behavior really until cryptocurrencies had come along. So if you'd said 5 years ago, there's people who will buy something only for the hype, and go crazy into it. I'm sure it had happened before, but I hadn't particularly seen it, I guess. That was a world removed from me, and so now coming into here, so you could be right in the sense that because it came along, I'm just seeing behaviors that have always existed, and I guess that's what I struggle with, because like those behaviors existed during the .com the .com like bubble and burst. It also happened in the 80s and the 70s with like housing crisis that happened in the US. So like it's happened already lots of times. It's just different mediums. I guess you could say micropayments, for example. So what I'm doing with Boostergramming, where else have we been able to do micropayments before? I don't know of any.
Depends what you call it. Like, and again, it's like, what do you call micropayments? Do you say when you can donate like 25 cents through PayPal on certain purchases? That's micropayments. You know what I mean?
Continuous stream of micropayments, I guess.
You could do continuous API calls with a PayPal call. Like, you can do it the same.
I can't do that.
you can set it up. What I'm saying is, it's just never set up.
I can't do that.
No, but I guess I'm saying is like, technically, you could do that.
No, because PayPal takes a certain amount from each transaction, so it's not a micropayment in that sense, I guess.
How would you describe a micropayment? Why is it that a micropayment in the blockchain doesn't take away the cost?
If it's like
who's incurring the cost?
$5 for me to give 25 cents. That's not a micropayment in my head.
So how is it? So say with a PayPal where you send 25 cents and then a 98% goes to the person at the other end.
Is it? I don't think it's that much, man.
I don't think if you send 25 cents, you get 1 cent to the other end. And again, I would say,
can you send 25 cents through PayPal?
Yeah, I've done a 25 cent like transfer through PayPal.
Okay.
Like it was a donation.
Okay.
So now the infrastructure of it set up, can it handle like bazillions all at once? Probably not continuous streaming. Neither can blockchain.
Yeah,
neither can the blockchain.
But
like it could absolutely stop the blockchain as well from enough like pushing of transactions through.
Yeah, for sure.
It's obviously very hard.
I think you're being a stickler here, Juan, which is
I think
you're coming up with all these hypotheticals. Which
it actually unlocked the question though, because I genuinely don't know this, and it'd be nice if someone listening to this would actually be able to tell me. But when you send through on say a blockchain transaction, 25 cents. Let's say I say 1 Satoshi, right? And then the other person gets 1 Satoshi back. Is that sort of how it works?
It's more if you're doing it through the Lightning Network, and it depends on the route that it goes through. So it does depend on the people. You can have it set up. So let's use a bigger amount. Let's say 1,000.
Sure.
The podcast index, you can either set it up where it is a percentage of it. So you could say, I want 1% or that, or 0.1%. So for 1%, that would be 10 Satoshis. Yep. And I will route your payment through from here, blah, 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 to where it needs to go. Yep. Or you can do it where it's it's not a percentage. It'll be like a flat fee of, 1 Satoshi, or you can do, I think you can even go into milli Satoshis and things like that. So yeah, you can have different ones, but essentially now, the way it's happening now, when I'm sending it, the podcaster will get 95%, 99% if it's, so 1% goes to the podcasting index, and then the app itself will take a cut as well.
Like some portion of that as well. Yeah,
so it is. So yes, you're you're correct in the sense like, yeah, there'll still be a cut being taken out. There's still people nibbling away at it, but it's the, if I was to do send 25-cent donations like I sort of have here on the minute, every minute through PayPal, like it's just, I don't see how I could do that set and forget sort of thing as a consumer.
When you say that you don't see how you could do that, it's because it doesn't exist right now, or even if it existed, you just like, nah, I couldn't see myself doing that anyways.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. It's because there's all these other things tied up with Bitcoin, for example.
Because I'll give you an example. I'm going to give you an example with a credit card, right?
Okay.
Like, I know for sure you could do this. You could set it up so, like, say you have an app. Let's say Spotify. And you partner up, like you just do it with your credit card. Like you sign up with your credit card. You're already paying like monthly or whatever cost it may be. And you could associate and be like, hey, rather than charging me, for every minute I listen to a music or something like that, ping my credit card for 10 cents, right? Now, again, there's cost in every transaction that goes to Visa or the actual master who actually go through all of those transactions. So there's probably more players in this, or the amount of money that gets all the way to the end can, like, whether it's the company, Spotify, or even back to the artist, it's a lot less. So I could see how micropayments through blockchain enable it to be more efficient transfer of the money to like where you intended it to go rather than the layers. But you can certainly do it. So, and I guess that's why, like, well, what's the micropayment difference here? And I would say,
why haven't people done it then? I guess.
Well, probably the cost prohibition. So like it is cost prohibitive, but it doesn't mean that it's not a micropayment. So I guess it's like, that's why I'm like, oh, when you're saying micropayment, it's like, well, one is, but one isn't. Is it, okay, it's a micropayment that's like sustainable or like financially doable?
Fine, we'll use that.
Or something like that. Because then I'll be like, oh, 100%. You could, like, that is a fantastic thing that the blockchain does allow. That allows it to be like, yes, you can send like the most minute amount and it's still going. Although I would challenge, and I'd love for someone to actually answer this question of like, is there too small of a figure that the amount of energy it takes to actually send that is like...
Of course there is, yes.
There's
limits, but it's getting to the point where it's, it's so low that it like doesn't even almost breach the consciousness level. So like if the bank skimmed off 0.00001 cent from me, that's such a little amount that it's like it doesn't matter.
Well, I guess no. What I'm saying is like so we talk percentages. Like we're talking percentages. Like I send this and then like a percentage taken out. But surely there's a threshold where you're setting it so low that for that to even process, it's just going to take 100%.
Yeah.
So
yes,
what? And so like, and then I'm not hitting on this, but it's like if say streaming, if you were doing streaming and streaming like 1 Satoshi per whatever a minute or something like that. I don't know what the minimum is that you actually can do it.
Yeah,
it's
one. I think
if you do like 1 Satoshi a minute, is that enough to cover like all the energy that's actually going through the system, or will it not go through? Or if it goes even lower, like say the price becomes like unsustainable.
I don't know.
Do you know what I mean? Like what if the price becomes like Bitcoin like 10x or something like that, and then you send 1 sat, although then the cost of 1 sat is more. These are all questions, folks, that we have absolutely no idea about.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I am interested, and I ask these questions because I think someone who would be really supportive, or trying to be like, oh well, payment. Why would you do payments here where I can do payments through like other systems? I think it's not to say that you couldn't do it. I think there's a lot of cons to the existing systems of my blockchain in general and cryptocurrencies are so much better at doing it. Like it's so much better at doing it. Okay. I would almost say that I would love to see the language or some of the words said for what crypto and blockchain is doing to be specific for crypto and blockchain. You know, like we talk like micropayments, I guess, and I guess we're just debating about like, well, what is it, what is it not? Like I almost think that you should call the payments that happen or the transactions using the blockchain and crypto like almost its own thing, and not even compare it to transactions that you're using a credit card for or something like that. I have no idea what that word would be. I have no idea how it would change it, but I think even just that language change would help to differentiate what it looks like for like a normal transaction and what's a transaction that's being done in like this more decentralized way.
Probably value for value is the closest thing to it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. What have you got for me?
I have literally 0 notes today. I took no notes. However, I did read another piece today out of the the magazine, and it actually got me thinking. So it was the donation, which is $9 that you pay, and $4.50 for the person who actually receives it.
Yes.
And I went, oh, that's actually pretty cool way of donating. Like I did like that form of donation, because it was like you directly, like literally the person you're buying it from is the person who you give money to, basically.
Yeah.
And you get this little magazine. And it was the first time I've purchased it a few times, but today was the first time that I genuinely read it. Right? And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like this in itself is probably worth the value that I took in terms of reading it and everything like that. But back to the actual donation aspect, I really liked doing that sort of stuff. Like I wish that was more easily available, like almost quick interactions, quick engagements where you can donate almost at a micro level or a smaller level, but you get this like little hit good feeling, and it's like easier to help out other people. Surely there exists much more, but at least like when we were looking a lot around how can we do volunteering and how can we donations and a lot of those things, I think often the only way to connect with people or the people who are like helping and supporting, whether like through like really huge activities or huge events, or where there was events where it was a little bit more direct, like I think it's like Suited to Style or something like that, where you can donate and help people like get suited to a particular job, or for like their outfits or something like that. It's like it's here and there, but very, very few and far between. And I went, I wonder if there could be better ways of volunteering, or there could be better ways that donations and not-for-profits could be set up so that it would enable more people to be like, oh yeah, that's a quicker interaction. I get this little burst of like good feeling, and it overall just helps more people donate and interact like that.
I would say they'd already have done it if they could have. This isn't a thing that hasn't like been noticed and talked about, I guess. Volunteering, donations, everyone knows what those words mean. It's not like decentralization where you have to explain to someone what that means, like the average person. And it would probably just be because the general person would do more harm than good in one-off volunteering things. Like you screw things up and it costs more time and effort than you actually get out from the person. So that's why I would say those sorts of things don't exist so much. And doing good is hard, man. The book I'm reading at the moment is another one on effective altruism. It'll actually be out before this this conversation, so go check that out. It's called The Most Good You Can Do by Peter Singer. And if Peter Singer heard you right now, he would spit in your face, because you're not doing the most good you can do. That's not the most effective way of using your $9. Like there's more effective ways of doing that. And
most good to, again, so to Peter, right? And this is
don't argue this one. Don't argue this. He wrote a full fucking book on this. So if you want to argue it, read the book first, and then get into it.
I would say that I could argue this point only because, and again, this is like why are you talking about? But this interesting concept that Yuval was saying about humanism, right? Or the humanist movement, the whole we care about humans, right? And I always do find interesting when the conversation happens of, it is the best for collectively as humans.
No, wrong, people. Juan hasn't read the book. He doesn't know shit. There's a whole section in the book where he's talking about how humanism is bad and we all should also be focusing on the animals.
Okay.
So, boom, strike there against Juan.
Okay.
Peter Singer 1, Juan 0.
So does he make the I guess the point then that
he makes the point that what you were trying to do just then, what was why did you feel good and why did you donate money essentially? So,
well, the donating is because it was one, effortless in the donation, two, because it was a direct positive feeling to me and a direct positive feeling back to the person. Like there was very few and far between agents in between the donating and the feeling of it as well. So I'd say those two things.
Okay, yeah. But what you can get that by giving $9 to anyone on the street. So why this person in particular? I guess
it was because it's someone who is doing something for the purpose that they're in need for that money.
Okay, yeah. So it's basically you're trying to help out someone who's less fortunate than you. Yeah.
Or in need. I wouldn't say less fortunate. I would say in need.
In need. Okay. There are people who are way more in need than that dude in the world. So why would you...
Again, dictated by what, though?
By suffering, hunger, death, disease. There's a lot of metrics you could use to compare this guy. And, I don't know this guy's particular story, but considering he's here in Australia, he is probably in the top 50, 80... I'd say top 50% of the world.
Yep. Yeah.
That money could be used better elsewhere is the essential argument in this book. And now look, when you listen to the book review, you'll see I have some qualms with this as well, so I'm not 100% endorsing it, but there is strong arguments to be made of why that is not useful behavior on your part and just people in general who donate for the feel-good feeling, for the feeling that they're doing good, but without really getting a bit more nuanced and nitty-gritty and going, oh, okay, I can actually make the world much better, reduce much more suffering if I take some certain steps and donate to charities that are more effective and things like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the rationality behind it is completely true. Now, but when you take humans as being emotional beings, let's say if you can be very rational, be like, well, if I send $10 into this space, and it will do 3 times the good if I send $10 to this place. However, you're a human, so you don't give a shit to do that most often because you're like, oh, if I feel good for this, I might do it more. Let's say you give 5 times more at the local scale than what you would do, even though it's 3 times better. That's still better then. The fact that you're giving 5 times locally is benefiting more than the fact that you're only giving $10, which is 3 times better to the wider. And I kind of go, I would say, and I think my problem with all of the effective altruism conversation is always like, I get it rationally and logically. This does make sense. What happens when you overlay like what in practice? How does this actually look like in practice when you get every human to do it? Because if it was so easily from an emotion perspective, why isn't every human on Earth doing effective altruism?
Well, that's the point. It's and I'll say this because I think this is something you've brought up a lot of times before, which is you would rather be more rational than emotional.
Definitely, yeah.
And so this is an argument of here's how you can be more rational and less emotional, and in this particular instance of donations and things like that. So, this is probably the book that has appealed to more people like you who would want to be more rational and less emotional in their decision making.
Yeah, and I think it would appeal to me, and it would shift some of that mindset. Or would I say truly that would have changed my emotional response to that? It's me giving direct money to somebody and seeing that benefit.
Yeah, they're not trying to change that. They're trying to change your they're not trying to change your innate human characteristics and emotions and things like that. They're trying to change your behaviors to move away from those.
Yeah. No, it sounds interesting. I'm keen to listen to the big review. Obviously, the book review will be out. But whenever anybody, and I don't care who it is, starts having the conversation of values of like between animals, and then because then you just introduce like anything. Then you're like, why isn't it better for the planet for just all humans to just become extinct?
Once again, he covers this in the book as well. So yeah.
Well, but my answer would be like, well, who in the end is making that call though? Right? Is it the humans? Like how is in that argument is others being put into the foreplay? Like what is the, when it's like, oh well, this benefits the planet, this benefits the animal. Through what lens? Through like what lens are you saying that? Well, it's through the lens of how we understand it to be, which is totally fine. That's cool. But I feel like an argument that's only being conversed by like one of the parties, I'm like, man, this is dangerous territory.
This is funny because Juan's arguing against like an ethics professor who's been in this. Like, I get it, but everything you've said here, he's preempted you and countered.
Which is good. Which I like, it's all of those things that I would be thinking, which would make it a really good book.
Yeah. The last one I just wanted to bring up was the Hosky chat is also out now. So that came out the day before this. And one of the things that I connected with the dev Vegas, or Carl from the Vegas pool on, was under-promising and over-delivering. And I wanted to, and that's something I definitely believe in.
Yep.
I haven't talked too much about the Value for Value podcast because I was going to send in a Boostgram last week, and I was like, I'd rather actually put out an episode before, like, get in the groove again. And thankfully I did that because I didn't have time this week because I've been just flat out doing all sorts of other random shit. So that was a good decision on my part because I didn't make an ass out of myself by saying something and then not happening. Yeah. So but what about you? Where do you fall on the spectrum of under promising and over delivering?
Actually, I think that's an interesting one. Where
other way, because you're a bit different than me.
Yeah. I would probably say that I would tend to try to go towards the under-promise, over-deliver sometimes, and sometimes I play like 50%, 60% of the time. Although I do have a feeling that I do want to be more along the lines of not under-promising, not over-promising either, but actually being like really quite close to the target in terms of what I'm actually delivering. And I say that because I think under-promising and over-delivering is a good thing. And I'm thinking from like a work perspective, I'm thinking from if you're doing helping out someone and to say like, I can only help you for an hour, you help them for 2 hours, cool, they're going to be really happy with you, something like that. But if you also say in that particular example like, hey, I can help you for 1 hour, but then you'll over deliver, I'll say for an hour and a half or 2 hours if I need to, and then I found someone else who can help me out because they can do an hour and 10 minutes.
Yep.
Then it's like, oh, okay, I should have said 2 hours because I could have helped you that 2 hours. No, random example, but I think yes, under delivery and under promising and over delivering is a really good thing. But I would actually say trying to promise and deliver quite like in line with each other would also be, I'm not going to say better, I would say it's also a really good thing. I wouldn't support over promising and then under delivering. And I think that really helps in any case, unless, and I have seen this in work, happens generally in government, where that's kind of like the only way you're going to win any job. Or you're going to like win any like sale or grant or contract. You got to like just say, I'm going to deliver this. Politicians, you got to say, I'm going to give you everything and more, and then not deliver it, but you're already in power, so like it's too late. Yeah, that's already happened. So, and it's still, I would say like that's almost like the necessary evil. But I wouldn't find myself happy with to do that. Yeah, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So for me, it's one. I actually hate that word, necessary evil. To me, that feels like an unnecessary evil, and it's just
true. Yeah.
It's
it's like the tolerated, almost like socially accepted thing that people do.
Yeah. So for me, necessary evils would be like, you have cancer, we need to cut it out. It's going to cause you a lot of harm, but that harm is a necessary evil because we have no way around it. Those ones feel like unnecessary in that if we just, use technological innovation to cause some social innovation and then fucking got rid of that bullshit, that would be a good thing. But yeah, on the spectrum, I was thinking about, I was like, 0 is the person who is just saying like, I'm going to do everything and delivers on nothing. Just trying to come up with an example of that. I'd put like Elon Musk around that sort of 0 to 5%. He talks a lot of shit. He does deliver on some things, but I would say more often than not, he's just a really great guy about hyping him, about hyping himself up and whatnot. I would probably put you around the 60% on the scale. So you're more leaning towards the over delivering and under promising, and then probably I'd be like maybe 90%. Okay. And yeah, I just thought that was I was sort of bonding with Vegas over that, and was thinking about, where do I sit? Where would Juan sit? And this, people at home, is why we need to do episodes on marketing and things like that. Yeah. Trying to hype ourselves up to be able to do some marketing, because it's just not. For me, that generally tends towards. You see it in like NFT projects, like, we're gonna. The roadmap. There's some social behavior I'm seeing everywhere. Everyone's becoming a fucking driver.
There was a fantastic conversation that Gary had with Kevin on the Proof podcast. It was like an hour long, and talked about like all the things he wants to do with VFriends and some of the ideas. And it had the usual Gary being Gary and being a salesman. But I had a really good conversation about roadmaps and just being like, fuck the roadmap. Like, a lot of things. Yes, it's good in some ways, but man, just the way that it's being done. People to be like, this is what we're going to do, and blah, blah, and then, like, not even one bit of it gets executed. It's like, well, it, like, probably goes well in the way to, like, destroying the whole project. Just it's like, well, now you've put this out there, and now you can't even do it, or you don't live up to it. Yeah.
That's why I like Hosky. They always over-deliver, because they don't promise anything. There's zero promises. And we were joking about that a bunch of the times as well. So, yeah, it was just one of those ones where I was like, under promise, over deliver. That's probably more of a benefit to your life than a detriment if you're doing that.
I agree.
Unless you take it too far, like mere mortals do, and don't make any promises and don't talk about your achievements. But whatever. Check out our status episode to see how we're trying to counter that as well. Okay, we'll leave it at there for today. That is another episode of the Mere Mortals Meandering section. We talked a lot about value and how to find value. Juan seems a bit confused, but I'm not confused. I know what value I want. I want some micropayments coming in. So if you go onto any of the new podcastapps.com, Fountain's a good one, Castomatic, Curiocaster. I was using Curiocaster a lot today. We've actually, I already seen we're getting some new boostergrams coming through after that light week last week. The Sad Poppy is worked in effect. Yep. So we do appreciate everyone who takes the effort, the time to send in through a boostergram, and then also to stream. So load up your wallet, stream however much you feel this podcast is worth as you're listening minute by minute. And we're gonna, I'll make a promise here, we're gonna keep making good content, and so just stick around. Folks. It only gets better.
It can only go up from here. All right, me mortal lads, that is it for now. One out.
Garnet.